All right. So, hi, everyone. I'm Lianne Shinton from Pet Biz Experts, which is a CRM software company for dog trainers. And today we have joining us again Adam Katz from Dog Trainer Toolbox. Welcome, Adam.
Hello.
Hello. And Adam has joined us before. I love having him on. And today, listeners, I want to ask you first before we get started, because Adam and I have a really good conversation planned based on working with dog trainers and helping them to bring in leads, helping them to manage their leads. So listen to this question. Do you guys ever get stressed out about how you or your team is handling the leads? Are you ever worried about leads getting lost, phone calls getting missed, opportunities getting missed? So if you've answered yes in your mind to anything that I just asked, then this episode is for you. Whether you're a seasoned dog trainer or just starting out, I think our conversation is going to provide a lot of value. And I am I've jotted down some notes, so I am reading from that to make sure we stay on track, because Adam and I tend to have some good conversation and we get off in the weeds a little bit, but we really wanted to stay focused on helping you with what to do with your leads and make sure that none get lost and how to best answer them so that you guys don't sound sterile and people just are disinterested in working with you, making a really good impression with those leads. So take what you want and leave the rest. We all have our different businesses and our different styles, but yeah, take what you want and leave the rest. So the first thing I wanted to ask you, Adam, is could you share a little bit about your knowledge and know-how with regards to contact forms and the contact forms that dog trainers have on their website and, pros and cons, anything you've seen that you can kind of help them with?
Sure. So let me put this in context for those of you who aren't familiar with who I am and you're not like thinking, well, who the hell is this guy? So over the past 30 some years, I've owned 3 dog training businesses in 2 different states, in Los Angeles and Las Vegas, and later in Reno, Nevada. I also owned a subscription membership website, one of the first ones that ended up having close to 70,000 subscribers to the free weekly dog training tips newsletter, and about 4,700 recurring paid members. That project ended up making us well over $6 million at the time. I also owned a Google Ads agency, and then now I run Facebook ads for dog training business owners just like yourself. A big part of my success, and prior to that, actually, when I was in college, I worked for a couple of different ad agencies, and was actually one of the youngest people to sit as a judge for the Clio Awards, which is one of the advertising industry is kind of like the Grammys or the Oscars for the advertising industry. So I've been fortunate in that I've been able to kind of take one of my passions being marketing and advertising and combine it with one of my other passions, which was dog training, and learn a lot. And then through the process of originally running Google Ads and then later running Facebook ads, I've had the opportunity to A/B test a lot of stuff in the dog training space specifically, and then also form connections and friendships with a lot of dog trainers who are doing over 500,000, a million, 1.5, $2 million, and even upwards, in some cases, bigger corporate type operations, and learn what they're doing, and then be in a position to kind of pass that knowledge along through my YouTube channel, Council Marketing, and through our dog trainer marketing group, shameless plug. So to your question,
Before you answer that, I just wanted to say too that one of the things that I really, really admire about you is like you learned this stuff a really long time ago, but you keep evolving and learning. And that's the thing, like a lot of people are like, I got it, I'm amazing at this. But the world changes, COVID
Right.
and technology, and there's just so much that has changed. And you're always staying on the cutting edge and doing these A/B tests, which is
Thanks.
fantastic for us dog
You really
trainers.
have to, because it's like if you don't, like the stuff that we were doing 15 years ago doesn't necessarily work or doesn't work the same as it does today, right? So, at one point, like when I first started running Google ads, the cost per lead was like really cheap. I mean, you getting, $2 to $3 leads. And now if you run Google ads, depending on the market, you might be spending $60 to $70 or $100 per lead, even more in some markets. And so, same thing with Facebook. I figure we've got a window of opportunity right now with Facebook ads. And already over the past year and a half or so, I've already seen it continue to kind of go up. So you have to be kind of, as a business owner, you have to be ahead of the curve because things are always changing. And there's definitely a first mover advantage when it comes to, taking advantage of new marketing tools and techniques that will bring you a better return on investment than maybe it will, 10 years down the road when everybody's doing it. So now, as far as the contact form, general best practices in the marketing world is that the fewer form fields, form field is like something that you ask, like their name and their phone number and their email. Those are all form fields. So the fewer of those you can ask, the better response your lead form will bring. So, for example, let's say I send 100 people to that lead form to ask them to fill out, their contact information. If I ask them to fill out like a whole like college admissions kind of thing, where like the complete history of their relationship with their dog and the dog's health background and everything that they would like to teach their dog and all this stuff, right? Every additional form reduces the response of that form. So, maybe I'm just going to make up a number. Maybe I've spent like $100 to bring 100 people to that form. And maybe, if the form is, the lead contact form is long, I only get 1 out of 100 people who actually fill the damn thing out. But if it's short, if it's only maybe 3 or 4 different form fields, then, maybe I get 10 or 15 or 30 even, because it increases my response. So that's what we're going after is we want to get that sweet spot where we're getting just enough information to be able to follow up with them and work the lead, but not so much information that it kills our response. And to be honest, most of that stuff you can get later on in the sales process. You don't need to get it right up front. So now, if you've got more leads than you can handle, then maybe you do want to ask a few additional things because it weeds them out. And the people that do get through that more onerous sales funnel end up becoming a higher quality lead. So there's times when maybe you want to do that. But typically there's times, in most cases you don't. You want to get as many leads as you possibly can, and then filter them out later on as they're going through your sales funnel. Make sense? Kind of?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So definitely their name, their email, their phone number, and then maybe just like one simple question of like, tell us about your dog, goals,
Right.
challenges. Like, what would you suggest as that one question?
That's pretty much exactly what I do. I ask them what type of dog training program they're interested in. Right. So it's kind of a challenge question just to make sure that they're actually awake. Because if you make it too easy for them, then a lot of times the lead quality suffers because they just kind of do it in their sleep or maybe they autofill. So what I found is that adding one additional name, email, phone, and then one additional challenge question helps improve the quality of the lead. And then what I've also found is that specifically with Facebook, this would not be the case. Let me back up. Specifically with Facebook lead ads. Not the case if you're running Facebook traffic ads or if you're running Google ads traffic to a landing page, for example, like a landing page on your own website. But for the lead ads, the default is that Facebook wants to autofill the fields. And if you do that, it just makes it too easy for them and the lead quality suffers. So what I do is I make it so that they have to manually enter their name, their email, their phone number, and then also that one additional challenge question. And by doing that, we found that the quality of the leads actually improved quite a bit.
Excellent, excellent. So I wanted to share a little bit from my experience as a dog trainer, running my dog training business in San Diego, North County, San Diego, and what the picture would look like when that contact form would come in. So you guys, again, can take what you want and leave the rest. So when we would get a contact form, what I would do first is I would read the form. We do have automation. I specialize in automation, but I still feel so much value in reading what the client wrote. I know what my ideal client is, and I'm looking for that. I'm looking for certain things, like if they're telling me about their dog and writing a whole story about sharing about their dog, I feel like this is probably going to sell. Now, if they simply wrote pricing question mark, then my feelings aren't going to be too hurt if this one doesn't convert. So that's the first thing that I do when I would get a contact form. The second thing that I would do is, depending on the time of day, so if it comes in like really late at night, I'm a dog trainer, busy person, or if it comes in maybe in the middle of the day and I know they're at work, they're like, hey, I'm at work right now. It depends on those kind of variables on how I respond. But typically, I'm going to respond with a phone call, a text message, and an email. So as I move through that process, I'm hoping that they book that free consultation. So that's my call to action. So the first thing actually that goes out when they fill out the contact form is they get that like generic, like, thanks for filling out the contact form. In the meantime, feel free to book a free consultation. So they would have the link right there and then. So if they didn't book, now I'm going to manually try to follow up with them. When I read that form and it says like, hey, I have a boxer and she's jumping all over my mother-in-law and I really need help right away. I'm looking for a board and train program. What's your pricing? So my response is not going to be, well, our programs are board and train program and we have a 14-day board and train program and it is $2,700, or that is very sterile. So I want to respond with something that is going to get them to book and something that is going to get them to engage. If I'm texting, I need to consider, I don't want to write out that whole novel. I think they say text messages shouldn't be more than like 160 characters for something like
Sounds
me
about
to,
right. Yeah, as short as possible.
yeah, as short as possible, snappy, and like just you can even read it without even opening the whole text. And you're like, oh, that sounds interesting. So something like, hey, Lianne, uh, your dog sounds like a handful. I've worked with many boxers and they're a lot of fun. Would you have time to jump on a quick call? Or would you like to book a free consultation? Something like that so that I can get them to book. Now, one of my little secret strategies is I would kind of play dumb and be like, I'm not the trainer, even though I am the trainer. I would say, um, like, I want to book you with Brett. He is our, salesperson. So I want you to talk to Brett. He's going to be able to provide you with all the information. He's going to ask you a lot of questions about your dog to better understand your needs. So I really want to get them booked with Brett. So I would kind of pretend that I was not a trainer so that I didn't have to deal with the pricing questions and I could push them along in that sales flow, in that journey to get them in front of Brett. So I got back to them right away and I need to get them in front of Brett. So I could play a little dumb. I'm not going to give out like housebreaking tips or tricks or anything like that. My job is to get them in front of Brett. So that was kind of my sales journey. And we'll talk about it later. But if I can't get them to book right away, I do put them in automated follow up. And we'll talk about that follow up too in a bit. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on like what your dog training business would look like when that lead comes in.
Yeah, definitely. I'm. We're definitely on the same page. I think the most important thing to remember for those watching at home, because I know you know this, but what is the objective? If you're sending them a text message, the objective should not be to sell them by text. You're not going to do that. I don't say you're not going to do that. You're one out of 100. You may, but our goal as dog training business owners is to not help one out of 100 people. We want to help 80 out of 100 people, or as many people as we possibly can. So the goal of the text or the email follow-up or the voicemail is not to sell them. It's just to move them along to the next step in your sales process, which is doing either, if you do a phone consultation, you book the phone consultation. If your next step is booking for an in-person consultation, then that may be the next step. But this is why, I see dog trainers, I'm sure you do too, and they want to send a whole novel to the client. And it's like, as a dog owner, I don't want to read through that. It's just let's just get to the next step of like, what do we got to do next? Right.
Absolutely.
So that's really important. And then, yeah, I like the way that I would deflect the whole, how much does it cost thing is that I would tell them that we offer a free consultation, evaluation, and temperament test. And the reason we do that is because, number one, I don't want to say the same program that I'm selling, like the 80-year-old grandma with the 120-pound Rottweiler, because it's not going to be fair to charge you, the same as she's going to pay. She's going to require a lot more work. But then secondly, we offer the free consultation, evaluation, and temperament test because we want to get inside the dog's head so we can figure out exactly what's going on. And then secondly, have you do some handling exercises with the dog so I can see what the current relationship is like between you and the dog, which is a big part of it. And then from there, we can put together a program that's going to best meet your needs, and also come up with both a price quote so you get an accurate price that's specific to you and your dog, and you're not paying for grandma's Rottweiler. And then secondly, a time frame so you know about how long it's going to take to get you from where you are now to where you've always dreamed of being with your dog. So, Lianne, what's your schedule like? I want to get you scheduled in because right now I think we've only got a couple of spots left for this week. And I want to see if I can get you in. Is Tuesday good, or would Thursday be maybe a little bit better? Or let me know what works for you. See, so what I've done there is I've done, as a sidebar, an assumption close. The assumption close is I'm assuming they want to get booked in, and I've just very smoothly kind of glided them into that. So they're no longer thinking about how much is it going to cost. They're thinking about, is Tuesday better for me, or is Thursday better, right?
Yeah, and you use my name too. I think
Yeah,
that is a critical thing. If you have their name, use it because that
yeah,
gets their attention. If you have their dog's name, use it because that is going to get them to open that email. Like, hey, how are things going with Flirty? I'm going to open that email because I want
yeah,
to tell them
yeah,
all about how
yeah,
things are going with Flirty.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. So you see these with a lot of the veterinary clinic automated follow up where they send out, it's Banjo needs his shots, that type of thing. And, how are you not going to open that email?
Exactly, exactly. And it is so important, like, to use all of the channels. So phone call, text message, and email. Sometimes the email goes to spam. So a lot of us were busy, we just send out that email, which is great. Definitely send the email, but it could be the wrong email that they typed in with their, big fingers on their phone. We've all made mistakes when we type stuff in and we're excited about something. So definitely send that email, but be prepared for it to go to spam. So make that phone call. Now, likely when you make that phone call, you're going to go to voice message. When you leave that voice message, you don't want to sound like you're reading a script. You want to have a smile in your voice. I mean, you that counts. That's a touch point. So give it your all. And if you do get them on the phone, listen, use your pauses. Like, you're pre-qualifying. You're, the mini start of their sale. So you've got to listen to them. And because their golden retriever puppy, to them, it's super unique, and that it's jumping on all the family, and they've got to help you to understand that, even though you've seen thousands of those golden retriever puppies that jump on the whole family. But just, if you interrupt them, they're going to start again. You're not
Let,
going to
let,
make that phone call any shorter.
let me jump in because before I forget, you brought up two or three really good points. Number one, this is why I think your software is so important, is because guys, to do follow up, what we call working the lead, to do follow up correctly, I recommend, and this is not just something I pull out of the air, but it's based on some of my best clients are doing, my most successful dog training clients. They have a follow up sequence where they get the contact information, and on day 1, day 3, and day 5. So let's say Monday, Wednesday, Friday, they follow up with a phone call, an email, and a text. And on day 1, day 3, and day 5, and day 2 and day 4. So, in our example, Tuesday and Thursday, if they can't follow up with a call for some reason, they're shorthanded. I mean, you really should follow up with a call, an email, and a text. But if you can't, then on Tuesday and Thursday, just follow up with an email and a text. And the beauty of using a system like Lianne's program is that it automates 70% of that for you, or 66%, 2/3 of it, right? And you might even argue it automates even more than that. Beyond those 5 days, you can extend that out until basically they ask you to stop, and that's where automation really really helps you out, takes a big load off your shoulders. So that's really important. So that number one. Number two, yeah, your point about listening is just huge. I mean,
Mhm.
really the secret that so few of like the sales books and the sales training and the sales gurus, they fail to talk about, especially like the Grant Cardone type people or the Andy, whatever his name is. They're so like high pressure, and that stuff may work if you're selling used cars. But for dog training, listening is the most important skill, because when you listen, they're telling you their emotional hot buttons. And then after they finish talking to you, I hope that wasn't a White Claw, Leanne.
No, no, I have a bit of a
I know how
cold,
you
so
are. um, so after they finish telling you all of, in the course of the conversation, and you're digging a little bit because you have to dig sometimes to reveal those emotional hot buttons, then either right then, if you want to book them, or later during the sales process, you can push those emotional hot buttons, and that's how you get them to take action. Action may be, confirming and booking for the free in-person consultation or paid consultation, if that's the way you're doing it, or it may be just, booking for a second follow-up phone call for whatever reason, right? So we need to push those emotional hot buttons in order to make the sale or get them to the next step in the sales funnel. Um, so that was super important. The listening, again, it's not about talking so much. It's really about listening and then gently guiding the conversation towards the next step in your sales funnel, towards the final step ultimately in your sales funnel, which is sign on the dotted line. Let's get you started with your dog training program. So yeah, listening is tantamount.
give me
Um,
some examples of the emotional hot buttons. Like, what are you listening for there?
I'm listening for basically pain points, mostly pain points or hopes and dreams. So pain points are, you know, so Mrs. Jones, tell me what's going on with your Rhodesian Ridgeback, and they say, I love him. He's a great dog. And of course, they typically go into the every detail of the dog's life. I got him when he was a puppy. He's now 6 years old, and blah blah blah. And he, we just haven't been able to get him to not pull on the leash. Like, it's been 6 years and he still pulls on the leash. And,
He hasn't
we
grown
just,
out of
we're
it?
wondering, huh?
He hasn't grown out of it.
Yeah, right.
That's what they're
Exactly. Right.
always waiting on. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's been 6
Have a
years.
grow out of it. Right. And so they say that, and what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to say something stupid. Like I hear a lot of dog trainers when I audit them. So sometimes I'll do audits of their sales process. I heard them say something like, well, how does that make you feel? Right? Well, how do you think it makes me feel, you dumb fuck? The dog's pulling me down the road. So don't ask stupid. That's not how you reveal the emotional hot buttons, right? So maybe what I'll say is like, okay, so tell me a little bit more. What happens, like when he's pulling you on a walk? Is it just right from the start, or is it usually like a trigger, like he sees a rabbit or another dog, or
So you're really
what's
like
actually going
fanning
on?
that fire, making sure they're really like
Yeah,
pain and
yeah. I
see
want
the
them
need.
thinking
Yeah.
and imagining and visualizing what's happening, and so I'm building tension, and then in a minute I'm going to show you how to relieve that tension. So I'm building tension. So then they're going to start describing like, oh yeah, he's usually really good at the beginning of the walk, and we start going, and then inevitably there's a rabbit or a squirrel, and man, he bolts, and it pulls my arm out of my socket, and then it's a whole tug of war thing to get him back into being next to me, and the whole thing is just a disaster. Whatever they say, it doesn't matter at that point, right? But I'm listening and taking notes to know, okay, this is the deal. The dog pulls, he bolts, he chases after rabbits or squirrels, whatever it is. So that's the emotional hot button. And then I built up that tension by asking her to kind of go into detail as to what's going on. And then I'm going to relieve the tension and make me the hero. So how that works is I'm going to say, okay, got it. Listen, I don't want you to worry about that. We can definitely help you. We can definitely help you. And you
Yes.
almost like 9 out of 10 times you'll hear an audible exhale. Like, oh, thank God. Thank God I finally got somebody who can help me with that. Okay, so here's what we do. Basically, what we offer: a free consultation, evaluation, and temperament test. It normally takes about 40 minutes, and we'll have you come down to our location. It is free, although you do need a credit card to hold the time slot, just so that you don't no show on us, and then we're there, wasting our time. But as long as you show up, it's completely free. And what we'll do is we'll do a couple of handling exercises so that we see what the current relationship is like between you and the dog. And then we'll also do some temperament test stuff so that I can get inside the dog's head and figure out what's going on. And from there, then we can put together a program that's going to best meet your needs, also give you an accurate price quote that's specific to you and your dog, and also a time estimate. So you know about how long it's going to take and how many weeks or whatever it ends up being to get you from where you are now to where you need to be. Typically, that pulling on the leash stuff, we can fix that stuff really, really quick. So I don't want you to worry about it. You're going to be fine. So, and then what's your schedule like? Things are calendars booking up quickly. Is Tuesday good for you? Thursday be better? And then, you're off to the races. So that's kind of the way that the emotional hot buttons works. Is it's just getting them to describe in more detail and not using stupid sales tactics like, how does that make you feel?
Yeah, and people they want to share information about their dog. When they hear you say their dog's name, their dopamine levels are probably going to go up unless they're super frustrated. But those are things where, you can make them feel good, make them feel listened to. In that conversation, so my job was always to kind of pre-qualify people, to prime them for my sales guy. But I wanted to share a little story with my dog training business. And it's I'm thinking about it because I have a cold right now. So my voice sounds a little bit like Janis Joplin. And I had
Just
this.
assumed it was pollen because everywhere in the South right now is. Anyways, go ahead,
Yeah.
please.
Oh no, I know the pollen. Yes. Yes. But no, this is an actual cold and it's horrible. But, so pre-qualifying is kind of a double-edged sword. And I know my ideal client. I love working with easy dogs to train, families, women, those are my ideal clients. I do struggle with training my Nana, who's going to have trouble with the remote collar and pushing the button and seeing it and everything. So if someone who's 78 years old reaches out, they're not my ideal client. They may not be a fit. I may have to recommend someone else to be a fit. I got a call one day and I got the call and I was speaking with her. And she had two German Shepherd puppies, brothers, siblings. So some, trigger warning is going off for me. And also she sounded really old, but actually she kind of sounded like how I sound right now. Maybe a little bit of smoker's cough, something. And I was so close to pushing her away because I have my boundaries and I make sure that I was pre-qualifying people and putting good leads in front of Brett. But I almost sent her away. She ended up, these two amazing, sweetest German Shepherds, super good friends with Flirty. I helped raise them and they had an old Samoyed. She became like a family friend. One day she had a heart attack and I had to go to the house and pick up the dogs and they'd already left for the hospital. Here's the keys to the house, help us. And I'm I'm there for you. The most amazing friendship, relationship, and of course, a $15,000 sale that came out of that, at least because the boarding that we did after the board and trains, just amazing. So be careful when you pre-qualify, because if you're in a bad mood, you're getting triggered because you had a bad client that had the same breed or sibling German Shepherds or something, and you might push them away, but that could end up being the most amazing client.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, the only pre-qualifying that I would typically do, it wouldn't be, a lot of people want to pre-qualify based on how wealthy they are, or if they can afford it or can't afford it. I don't buy into any of that. I mean, I had people coming out of the hills with holes in their sweaters and didn't have shoes and stuff, and somehow they may have to save up for it, put a down payment and then come back when they have the rest of the money a month or two later. But I didn't typically buy into the whole, pre-screen them based on what they could or couldn't afford. And that's probably another topic for another video. But the only real thing that I try and pre-screen for would be like aggression issues
Hmm.
where the dog had put somebody in the hospital or hurt or killed somebody. Those types of things I didn't want to deal with. Especially by the time I got to I did a lot of aggression with my first dog training business, enough to realize that like I didn't want to do that by the time I had acquired some wealth and assets and had opened up my third dog training business. So, and you don't need to. There's enough good clients out there. You can refer those kind of clients out to somebody else. But yeah, sometimes there are people that, um, you know, maybe your personality doesn't mesh, or you just don't have the patience to deal with that type of dog owner. But what I would recommend is, if you do in-person consultations, make that judgment later after you've met them in
Yes.
person, because very, very frequently, like your case shows, um, they end up being great clients sometimes,
Yes.
and sometimes they don't, and sometimes you think they're going to be, and they end up being terrible clients, and you don't know anyway. So,
Yep.
sign them up, unless there's some, real serious, obvious red flags. But normally you should meet them first, because a lot of times, um, it ends up going in a better direction than you might think.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where automation can come into play too, because if maybe the automation gets them booked, the automation is following up with them and it's pre written, it sounds amazing. It's branded for your business. It speaks your brand. They get booked through that. Now they're getting in front of your sales guy, and you didn't get them on a bad day where I answered the phone and I had my cold and I kind of felt
Yeah,
crappy,
yeah,
and they felt like I wasn't listening to them. So sometimes automation can be your friend that way too. Also, we would see a lot like someone would fill out our chat widget or send us a text message and say, "Do you use shot collars?" And most of the time they're just like looking for a trainer that actually trains with remote collars.
mm,
But sometimes they're not. And sometimes, we get triggered by that as trainers and we're like, get all defensive. So I would pre write out my response to that, save it. And then next time I get that response, I can personalize it a little bit if needed, but it's already pre written. It doesn't sound defensive because I think that's how a lot of us sound when we get that kind of question.
yeah. Yeah, definitely, definitely. I think especially when it comes to either the follow up sequence or the actual sales pitch, after you've been doing it long enough, you should kind of come up with a script, like your own script that you can do naturally, that fits, with your voice. But you'll discover the best way to say things, like the most efficient way to say things, right? And you kind of A/B test that, in your own way, and then incorporate that into the rest of your follow up sequence, be it your text or your email, whatever else you're doing. And if you have stuff that's already been tested, across different markets in the industry, that you can just plug and play for your new clients that sign up for your software, um, even better. I think that would present a really good, almost a unique selling point, rather than somebody else going off with like high level, for example, where they have to build out the follow up sequence themselves and write everything from scratch, maybe. But if someone like you approached me and said, "Hey, I've got this. We've already tested this in XYZ different markets. This follow up sequence, we know it works, and you'd be kind of good to go." I think would be an invaluable, unique selling proposition for dog trainers, because it would bring so much value to the table. Even if you don't do that, the individual dog trainer can come up with their follow up sequence based on, their experience with their sales process. That's good too. But just some kind of random thoughts on that note.
Yeah, yeah, no, and that's one thing that you taught me a long time ago is you really got to hit them hard the first 5 days. So obviously you're going to get back to them. I mean, this day and age, you got to get back to people in like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So you got to follow up with them on the first day. Some will actually follow up multiple times throughout the day. I'm a little bit more passive, so I will follow up the first day with that phone call, and then I'll put them in nurture. The nurture will include a text message and it will include an email. Those are all pre-written, but that first phone call that I made was a manual phone call. If I need to respond with a text message that's personalized, I can also do that. But the next day, they're going to be in nurture. I'm not going to do much. So we're going to hit them pretty hard those first 5 days. And we're going to hit them with text messages, voicemail drops where you pre-record like, hey, this is Lianne from IQ Canine
Oh,
Training.
yeah.
Just following up, you reached out yesterday about our dog training, and I wanted to see if you'd like to do a free evaluation and temperament test. We have some spots. I just texted you the link to go ahead and get signed up, blah, blah, blah. So we would just drop that in automation. So it doesn't say the person's name and things like that, but it saves you so much time. So that's going to go out. The email's going to go out, and we're going to keep following up with them pretty hard the first 5 days. After that, we start to back off. It's like once a week, then once every 10 days, then once every 30 days. But we want to stay in front of them in hopes that like Fluffy poops on the kitchen floor and they're like, where's that dog trainer's number? And, you're the only one that's been following up, because most dog trainers are pretty lazy and they're not going to even follow up.
Yeah, yeah. The money's definitely in the follow up. I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but I'm curious. What is, in your experience, what is the how do I phrase this? The farthest a follow up has actually pulled in a paying client. So, for example, after 4 months, or after 6 months, or after a year, or what have you seen?
Yeah, we keep them in and check in after 30 days, another 30 days. So even after 6 months, we've seen conversions. Um, One thing that we're not going to talk about today because we're focusing on leads, but we also have follow up for when you don't sell it. And you check back in. Hey, it was great meeting you the other day. How's Flirty doing? I'm here if you have any questions. That one has been a huge converter. So we're not going to talk about that one today, but
We'll get back to that.
overall, like all of our nurture, it increases sales about 30%, and it
There we
saves
go.
you about 10 plus hours a week. And I enjoy the follow up and the nurture. It's kind of like a video game. Like I actually enjoy the challenge. I'm like, I got 15 leads and I converted this. Like seeing that it just makes you be competitive with yourself. And I think it's kind of fun. Whereas in the past, I was like, oh my God, my phone's ringing gross.
Right, right. Love it. Yeah, that's huge. I mean, if you can save 10 hours a week, not having to, do the drudgery of following up by email and text and all that. I mean, it's such a game changer that, we didn't really have this stuff, 20, 25 years, at least not to the extent and the use of technology that we do now with your software, for example. And I'm excited to see in the future, the role that AI will start to play and all of that. But again, that's another topic for another video, probably.
Yeah, yeah. And when I built Peppa's Experts, the software, the CRM, I realized that there's a lot of CRMs for dog trainers out there, but they're only covering once the client is a client. So once you need to get the contract signed and collect the deposit and get the vaccinations, but that's all well and good. But what about this part on the front end when I had the phone call come in, or, oh my gosh, there's a Facebook message over here and there's an email over here and just all these things in all these different places. I wanted to get those organized in one place. I wanted to have a pipeline so that I could keep track and watch the customer journey through that sales flow and get more consultations booked. So
Perfect.
yeah, that front end of the business was what I really wanted to build. And another piece too is the missed call text back. Have you ever heard of that?
Missed call, text back. Now, how's that work?
So it fires off an automation if you miss a call. So if you call my business right now, I'm shooting this podcast right now, so I'm going to miss that call for sure because I'm the only one that answers the calls. But we don't get many calls, and we have automation, so it's like whatever. But basically, after 2 minutes, whether you left a voice message or you just hung up, after 2 minutes, it's going to fire off. It's going to say, "Hey, it's Lianne from Peppa's Experts. I just missed your call. How can I help?" And now you're texting with me. So I can text you back in 20 minutes when I'm finished this call. And whereas a phone call, you have to get that call right then and there. Like you can't answer 10 minutes later. You
Right.
have to answer that call right then and there. You're playing phone tag and things. So that missed call text back is huge because, you're in a lesson or there's a barking dog in the background, a baby crying or whatever. You can't answer the call at all times. You're on another
Yeah.
call. So the missed call text back has been a huge return on investment using our software.
Yeah, I've noticed that with just calling like local service providers that a few of them have used that service themselves, and it it works on an emotional level because it makes you feel like okay, they're getting back to me fast. Like I don't have to wait and wonder whether or not they actually got the voicemail or whether or not they're ever going to get back to me. So even though they can't immediately call me back, the fact that I immediately get a text saying, you know, hey, I got your thing, and I'm just in the middle of something, and I'll call you back in the next hour or two,
Exactly.
emotionally makes me feel like, okay, I've finished this task. I've got somebody that's going to call me back, and we're kind of on that path, rather than me being like, okay, I got to keep calling and calling and calling until I get one of these people to actually answer the phone. So I think,
And
yeah,
it's
that's a super important
and
tool.
it's such a native feature to our platform that people take it for granted. But you know, it's just the basics. Like
Yeah.
it's just amazing. But sometimes people will sign up, like dog trainers will sign up to use our software, and I'll say, well, what do you want your missed call text back to say? This is what we would recommend. And then they'll write a novel. But again, we want to make sure that texts are less than 160 characters. We also we don't want to send them a whole bunch of information about our packages and this is what we do and we specialize in
Right.
board and train. And no, we want this to sound manual. That I actually typed this in. Hey, this is Leanne from IQ Canine Training. I just missed your call. How can I help you and your pup today? Like they think I just manually wrote that out. So that's what it's got to feel like for the client's perspective.
So then what happens? They text back and they say, yeah, I've got a dog that's pulling on the leash and blah blah blah. And then they hit send. What happens immediately after that? Then you've got another automated follow up. I'm assuming.
Dude, so many different options. So I like to manually reply. At that point, you could just call them. You know, now you're available. You know,
No,
if
no, no.
you're
But I mean, okay. So I'm the dog trainer, right? And I'm in the middle of a session. I can't answer the phone.
okay.
So it triggers the text back, and your text back says, how can I help you? It makes it seem like you're actually texting them, right? So then the client immediately texts back to that text and says, oh, can you call now? Can you jump on a call with me right now? Or how does that work? Walk me through the process there.
So one thing is we can talk about more AI, but AI is a new thing that's coming out, and you know, I think with dog trainers, it's a very emotional business because we're helping people with education for them and their, you
Right.
know, saving their dog's life kind of thing, helping them um, on such an emotional level. Like we're not like paper shredding company or dentist or something like that. Like there's so much emotion. So we do have to consider that AI, it needs to be freaking perfect. But you could use a conversational AI there, like
Okay.
where you reply like, um, actually, I will be available for a call. Would you have some time tomorrow? Here's, you know, let me get you on calendar and we'll sit
Right.
down and we'll talk.
I like that.
I think too, booking something versus just phoning back and forth, getting somebody on the phone, they might not be present for that phone call. Whereas if I book something and I say, okay, I have a call with Adam's dog training tomorrow at 4 o'clock, I'm going to be present for that phone call. Versus you got me. Okay. Yeah. I'm just bringing the groceries in
Right.
and I'm not as present. So I think
I like that. I like
psychologically
that.
there's something to like, you know, how about I give you a call at 4 o'clock? Would that work for you?
Yeah.
And now they're a bit more present. You have some follow up, like some reminders. But yeah, kind of got off in the weeds a little bit. What I wanted to say was if I'm in this meeting right now and I'm running my dog training business, I work with my whole team, a small team, you know, is usually a team of 3 of us, maybe 4 of us. And I assign roles within my organization. So we have like Voxer or WhatsApp and it's our team channel. And so I say, okay, everybody on the team, I'm going into a lesson with Rufus right now. I'm normally the one that answers the calls. The second in command for the calls would need to step up at that moment. And I think that that's a critical thing as a business that we all need to think about. And we don't need automation for that. We don't need to be fancy, but we need to have like a chain of command. Whereas if it's Leanne's job to answer
Yeah.
the calls, if it's
Yeah.
Leanne's job to work the leads, what happens in the evening? What happens on the weekends? What happens if she's sick? What happens if she's in a lesson? Who's the number 2? And who's the number 3?
Right. Right. And I think even if you are a one person business, what I would do is probably in that follow up text, where you've texted back just saying, "Hey, I'm in the middle of a dog training session right now.
Yes.
Would it be okay if I called you back, in a couple of hours?" Um, and then maybe they reply back to that. A couple hours, we're going to a dinner party, but can we talk tomorrow morning? And then obviously you have to get back to her, but at least you're moving towards your goal. I think also I was just thinking on the fly here, another option. I don't know how it would work, or maybe you've tested this already, but I wonder if the auto text back said something like, hey, I'm in the middle of a dog training session right now. Um,
Yeah.
if you wouldn't mind, use this link to book a call with me when you're available, and pick a time so that we can set up a specific time, and then you have that go to your Calendly app or your Pet Biz program, and then they actually nail down a time when you're both available right then and there, and so you kind of push them off, and that way you don't necessarily need a full staff to execute that strategy. You're just kind of booking that time when both of you are available, and hopefully they show up for the call.
Yes, and some of our dog trainers do use very similar language to what you just said. As long as it sounds like you literally just like, I'm in a
Yeah.
lesson right now, and it sounds like you just wrote it out. That's really important, and keep it short and sweet. And that's where our system they called snippets, but they're like templates where they're pre-written text messages. For example, where I can say like, I'm in a lesson right now. It's already pre-typed out. I'm in a lesson right now, and I could just pop it in there and hit send. So those kind of things can happen a little more quickly and efficiently. And then you aren't making spelling mistakes because you're trying to do two things at once.
Right, right. Now tell me about, you have an app that your clients use. Tell me about how the app works. So like I have a dog training business, and I sign up with your program, and then you give me an app that I then use the app to call the clients back with, so that everything's tracked.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. So yeah, it works on your desktop as well as on your phone. And then we can have the calls ring through our app onto your phone. And so we can track how many calls you had that whole month, that whole week, that whole day.
Perfect.
So you could see any gaps. So sometimes we'll look at our dog trainers, we'll say, okay, guys, you had 250 phone calls this month. Great. You answered 70%. Great.
Right.
And then we can even look and we can listen to the recordings for training purposes. And we can say,
Yeah.
well, of course you didn't answer this one, and it came in at 9 o'clock at night. That'd be weird. So you can really get a lot of information in that call reporting. The recording, of course, is great because we're in a high risk industry. Dogs run away, dogs bite. We've all had to make tough phone calls where, it's a little bit, I'd rather have this recorded. So yeah, the recordings are great, and we can see the gaps. So like if you get 250 phone calls in 1 month, you answer 70%, but then I look at your outbound calls and you only made 20 outbound calls. Something's wrong here. So we're able to identify, you know, mistakes that might be happening within the team or whatnot.
Yeah. And the only way you're going to do that is with a call tracking system like yours, which actually takes it a step above what you might get using somebody like What Converts, I think, because you've got the outbound aspect to it as well. So I love that, because one of the things that would drive me crazy when I was running Google ads, for dog training clients, is that we would send the traffic to a landing page, and we would use call tracking, which was a godsend, and it wasn't as full featured as what you're offering. But what I would get frequently is people would call, the dog training business owner would call me up and say, "Hey, I didn't get any leads, last week or something." And we'd be able to go and we'd be able to look, and we'd say, "No, actually, you did get leads. You got this many
Yeah.
leads, and you got this many calls." And I could see, like, none of these calls got answered. So
Yes.
what's, and it kind of keeps everybody honest. So I love that. That's a feature, especially with the call back feature. I think it's so important. So definitely worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the calls. Again, high risk industry. I've had to call people and I'm like, okay, I have your little Frenchie here and his eyeball popped out of the socket. What would you like me to do? Did I take him to the vet? And they're like, oh, just pop her right back in. It happens all the time. And I'm like, great, glad I have that recorded. Okay.
It's a glass eye. Don't worry about it.
But yeah, you just
That's why we
never
call him
know.
Sammy. Sammy Davis.
And aggression calls too. It's like, oh no, he's never bit anybody, and da 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 da. And then you find out later he has. And if you've got that call recorded where they said this, so it can definitely help your business a lot and help protect you guys. Um, I wanted to talk a little bit more about. We've talked a lot about leads, but bringing those leads in and using Facebook ads. Back in the day, I was like, we have our phone number listed in the yellow pages, and we might run an ad in the newspaper. But nowadays, we have social media and Adam at our disposal. So I definitely used when you were running Google ads, and we were moving, staying within California, but we were moving. It would take a while for our website to optimize, so I ran ads while we were in that phase. So if any dog trainers are out there that are new, that need to bring in more business, maybe you're thinking about moving, maybe you're opening up another location. Maybe Adam, you could talk a little bit about like what that experience is and how you can help them.
Yeah, it's basically what any good advertising campaign does, be it Google ads or Facebook ads or anything else, is it creates ideally, if you can get the campaign dialed in, it creates clients on demand, right? Like I don't need to
Yes.
be in an area. Everybody says, "Oh, just do good work and the clients will come to you." Well, guess what? There's at this point in time, there's 10 other dog trainers in Orlando, Florida, who also do good work. And so you need to basically you know have a mechanism to bring you desperate dog owners consistently every day, every week, and every month. And so if you have an advertising campaign that is dialed in to do that, that's what you're going to have. And you're going to have something that, in theory anyways, you can ramp it up or dial it down depending on how many new leads you want to get every week or every month. Now, what I've found, Google Ads is still great, but what I found is that Facebook Ads is typically about 30 to 70% cheaper, less expensive, more economical than Google Ads might be. Depends on the market, but apples to apples, it's generally less expensive, and so you've got that working for you because everybody and their uncle who starts up a dog training business immediately jumps on the Google Ads thing, and it's very competitive at this point. Facebook ads is getting there because more and more people are learning about it. But the problem with Facebook ads is it's a little bit more difficult to get it dialed in, especially if you don't know what you're doing. You can burn through a lot of cash really quickly. So what I offer is basically the fact that I've worked with so many different dog trainers from so many different markets at this point, and we've A/B tested the ads. Where A/B means basically you run one ad with one headline and another ad with another headline, and you run it for 10 days or whatever, and you put some traffic through it, and you see which one outperforms. So the one that does better becomes your champion, and then maybe depending on what you're testing, you bring in another challenger and you test the headline on the challenger with the headline against your champion. And so eventually you get to a point where your ad is working really, really well, and it's bringing in leads really consistently at a lower cost per lead. And then what I've done is, because I've worked with enough dog trainers in enough different markets, we've tested it in a variety of different markets now, in a lot of different markets. And so what that does is it eliminates, it's one less factor you have to control for. So when we go into your market from day one, we already know we've got ads that work. We already know we've got the copy and the creative to basically push the emotional hot buttons to reach dog owners that have dogs and are looking for dog training, and bring them in to your sales funnel so that you can start making money. Now, all advertising is a test, be it be it postcards or television ads or radio or Google ads, whatever it is. It's all a test. The way I've structured my Facebook ad service is that basically there's no long-term contracts. So my feeling is that we're going to be able to get it dialed in by the end of the first month, or you're going to know basically if you have a winner and if it makes sense to continue running the ad campaign month over month, hopefully year over year. Or if for whatever reason it just doesn't work in your market, then you shut it off and you deploy the money into something else. I think what we're offering brings a lot of value, and it allows the dog training business owner to obviously increase their revenue, but it also helps them to help more dogs and more dog owners with the service that they're bringing to the marketplace. So, and right now Facebook is it. You may talk to me in 6 months or a year, and it's something else. Maybe if TikTok survives, maybe I'm going to be offering TikTok because I'm testing this stuff, right? And that's another thing is that you guys, you're not you, but dog training business owners, you're busy training dogs and running your dog training business. You may not have the time to be testing different ads, let alone different ad platforms. And so I did that when Google Ads kind of hit maturity point, hit a saturation point. We jumped over to the Facebook ads. And then at a certain point, the same thing will happen with Facebook ads. We're already starting to see it. I think we've got another couple of years left, but we're already starting to see it. And so at that point, we'll probably pivot and jump to Twitter/X or TikTok or Reddit or whatever else is out there that seems to be attracting the eyeballs. Because when it comes to advertising, there really is a first mover advantage. Doesn't mean you get a lower cost per lead, and you get to establish more of a dominant position and figure out like how to get your campaign dialed in before anybody else does. So I've done that with Facebook ads, and I think the other benefit that I bring to the table is I run all the campaigns myself. So I had an agency when I was running Google ads and decided I didn't want to do that this time. I wanted it in Facebook ads. It's easier for me to manage. There's less, moving plates to keep in the air, so to speak. And so because of that, I'm able to offer basically twice as good at half the price compared to a lot of these agencies, because they have the owner and then they have the intermediate management level in between that is basically the salesperson that you deal with, and then they have their techs. So you're paying for all of that. Not with me. With me, you're working directly with me. I wear all of the hats. And so I've got a limited number of clients that I can actually work with at any given time. But that being said, you're getting it at a much more economical price point, and I think a better quality service. So in that sense, I think what we're offering with Facebook ads is really good. Even if you don't use me, though, I think you owe it to yourself and to your dog training business to test Facebook ads, and you may have to test it in a few different ways, because I've gone through the process of testing all kinds of different ads before I found ones that actually worked, and then before I found ones that worked even better than those ones that work, right? So it's you have to test a lot of this stuff. But whatever you do, whether you use me or you use somebody else, commit to setting aside maybe 10 or 15% or 30% if you can of your revenue towards investing in your business. And a big part of that is advertising mechanisms to bring in more dog owners so that you can help more dogs. Make sense?
Yes, definitely. And I see some of these leads that you're pushing into like our client system. And so I read the forms. That's one of my things I really like to read and, see what people are sending in. And I have seen so many forms that have been pushed into one of our dog trainers' CRMs who are using our service for Pep is Experts. And I read the forms. Every single one of them are good leads. Like,
Good.
This I have this dog and it's doing this, and they're not just pricing ? Like they're telling us about the dog, and yeah, they're really good leads. So definitely Adam is getting results. We see it. We see that he's working with some of the top dog trainers. He's getting the results, and I see the leads, and I've never seen a bad lead. I'm like, this looks like a really good lead.
I have. But thank you for saying that nonetheless.
But one thing I do enjoy is you have the Facebook group. And I enjoy when you post your funny stuff and your pictures and stuff. But sometimes you would post like, which one do you guys like better? And I don't know. I always respond to those kind of questions on the group. So maybe talk a little bit about the group and do more of that, because I quite enjoy saying, I like this one.
Yeah, definitely. So it's the Dog Trainer Marketing Group. It's called the Dog Trainer Marketing Group on Facebook. You'll see a picture of me with a Dutch Shepherd on the masthead of it. And we've got over 5,100 professional dog training business owners and aspiring dog trainers swapping secrets, strategies, tactics, and tips on how to grow their dog training business. And so what I find interesting, I don't do it as much with the Facebook ads, because there's a certain point where you can A/B test. Like there's a point of diminishing return, right? That you test like the big stuff, but then there's a point where like, oh, let's test the color. Does yellow work better than blue? No, none of that, right? So I don't do it as much as I did early on, but sometimes I'll get a wild hair and decided to test something that's like really out there, right? And
Yep.
what's fun is I'll go ahead and test it. And a lot of times the one that you think is going to win is not the one that actually wins. So it's fun for me to put that up in the group and say, which one do you guys have? This one, the A or the B? With this one with this headline, or this one with that headline, or this one with the woman in it, the pretty woman, or this one with the ugly woman, or the ugly dog and the pretty dog, whatever it is,
Yep.
right? And so it's fun to see the response from everybody in the group to be like, oh yeah, that one's definitely the winner. And it's funny because you'll typically get about 50% that choose one, or 50% that choose the other, but there's almost always a clear winner, that I've actually tested in a specific market to come up with and figure out which one is the winner. But again, it's so interesting. That's what makes marketing and advertising so interesting, is that it's not typically the one that you think is going to win. I mean, there's certain principles that like the law of reciprocity, or the law of scarcity, and you know, um, you know, stuff that is a little bit different or whatever. That a lot of times you can kind of predict if you know advertising and marketing. But even then, you'll be surprised. I mean, I've had ones where, like, I thought this one was definitely going to kill it, and then it's the other one. So it's fun. It's fun seeing that, and it's also fun running those kind of campaigns because you learn stuff about advertising and marketing by looking at the results that you get.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love those. I know that you're testing on an audience of dog trainers, so it's probably not the right audience because we're not just regular pet owners. Like, we know some stuff, so probably not the best. But yeah, it's interesting. Like, I'll show Brett a website or a social media page, and I'll be like, I really love this one, and he hates it. And like the attraction, something that I would look at that's softer and more, woman, and then he's more bro. So yeah, all of that definitely is very
Yeah.
interesting, but not my area. So I'm glad there's someone like you out there that can help us to learn, and you're always continuing to learn this stuff.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, there's a point, obviously, as a person servicing small business owners, where I have some people, and they're like that. They're like, oh, can we test five different colors, the background of the colors and stuff? And it's like, no, I'll test like the breed of dog, and I've done that. Like, for example, one of the images that we use in our ads is a Rottweiler puppy playing with a tennis ball. And I've tested that against a more family friendly breeds like the Golden Retriever and the Labrador Retriever, thinking that we're offering family dog training. These breeds should do better than a little Rottweiler puppy, and for whatever reason, that little Rottweiler puppy playing with the tennis ball outpulls all the other stuff I've thrown at it. So it's really fun. It's really interesting to see what brings the best response, and sometimes it's like you'll get a winning ad campaign that works in 7 out of 8 markets, and then you go into that 8th market and it just doesn't work, and you're banging your head against the wall because why isn't it work? This doesn't make sense. It should, and everything else lines up. Like you take sister cities, basically similar populations, apparently similar market demographics, um, and I'm at the point where, like, I don't know when it doesn't work. I don't know why it doesn't work. It might be the competition, or it might be just some anomaly. We don't know. But I'm not saying that to scare you away. Most of the time, it always works. Basically, it's just a matter of how well does it work, and does it work well enough to hit our marks. Ideally, I like to get 7 and 9 times return on investment. I'll settle for a 3 times return on investment. Worst case scenario, but typically, if you're just doubling your money, then you're working too hard to pay Zuckerberg. So at that point, maybe it doesn't make sense to continue running the campaign. But it's so interesting, the marketing aspect to it and the advertising. So that's why I do what I do. I love dogs. I've owned 3 dog training businesses, like I think I mentioned in the beginning. But I'm really more interested at this point in I'm in between dogs. We just lost our 14-year-old
Yeah.
border collie, but I recently went to a couple of dog training seminars and really was surprised at how much I enjoyed getting back to the whole, me being the student, not being the teacher. And so that's why I kind of gravitated away from owning the dog training businesses. Also, I had a certain skill set, so I had a certain um, number of skills that for my position, I felt like I can reach and help more dog owners and more dogs by helping more dog trainers grow their dog training business. And at the same time, I'd kind of gotten burnt out of working with the dogs and the dog owners myself. So that's kind of, you know, for those of you wondering, well, why the hell doesn't this guy have more dog training businesses himself? That's the reason. Also, there is compared to the online marketing stuff, there's definitely more exposure, in terms of like as you get older in life. I'm 54. I've been fortunate enough to acquire some assets. And as a dog training business owner, hopefully, you shelter those assets by using an LLC or an S corp, and you do the best you can, like you said, recording conversations, all that kind of stuff. But there's certainly, compared to the online marketing stuff, there's certainly a little bit more exposure. So that was something also, given the skill set that I had, it made more sense to gravitate towards the marketing side of things rather than, getting my hands dirty with the actual dog training.
And I appreciate like the transparency you've always said about like, sometimes the ads, like you just said, sometimes they perform amazing and sometimes for whatever reason they don't. And I love that you really pay attention. I can appreciate that so much, that you watch the numbers and you're very transparent and honest. So yeah, I think dog trainers definitely should reach out if they, need any help with bringing more leads in. Go to Dog Trainer
Real
Toolbox.
quick, I've tried to build that into my offer because I don't have any long term contracts, and that
Yeah.
allows you to kind of test it for a month and see if you like the results. Rather than, a lot of these agencies, they want to lock you into a 6 month or 12-month contract, and my position is like, dude, you don't even know if it works yet. So I don't want people like cursing my family name every month when they pay their credit card bill because they got locked into some
Yeah.
12-month or 18-month contract, and they didn't even know if it worked. So I think it's really important that, that me and any of us on the ad manager side of the equation, we set it up to be a win-win situation for the dog training business owner. It's the ads work. You're making a multiple on your investment, and I'm making a little bit as well. The ads don't work, then we both lose. You take that money next month that you've dog-eared to invest in growing your business, and you apply it to something else, because nothing always works. I mean, it always works. It's a matter of how well it works, right?
Right.
So that's obviously what you're testing as a business owner. You're testing whether or not this approach to Facebook ads works, or this approach to Google ads works, or newspaper ads, or postcards, or whatever campaign you're testing, to see if it works for you and your market, to see if it makes sense to reinvest and maybe even scale your ad spend budget because it's working so well. And that's what's really exciting for me, is when I get that email that they're like, yeah, this is working.
Yes.
Scale it up, because every dollar we spend with you, Adam, we're getting back $12. So it's here's another $1,000. Scale it up, and so I love that.
Yeah, it's awesome. And it's awesome for us because we can see the results in the CRM. We can see, you know, how they're doing, and they have all their reporting, everything. So yeah, it's just it merges together just so nicely to be able to help,
It does.
all those leads that are coming in aren't just going in the garbage. They're
Right.
getting the follow-up that we provide.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I recognize that. That's why I promote you so hard, is because it's such an important part that the leads just don't die.
Yeah.
You're not calling them back once. It goes to their voicemail, and maybe you call them one. Now you need to have a dedicated follow up sequence to what we call work the leads, because
Yes.
that's where that's the difference between winners and losers in this business, is how well they take leads. I mean, I know some people, their philosophy, some dog trainers, their philosophy is there are no bad leads, meaning that everything goes into the follow up sequence, and we're going to keep following up with you until you actually book with us. So it may not be right for everybody, but the lead follow up sequence is just as important as bringing in new leads,
Absolutely.
because you're maximizing your ad spend dollar. So
Absolutely.
boy, Leanne, you just wind me up, and I just keep pop, 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 pop.
Awesome. Well, it was a great conversation. Did you have any final thoughts, takeaways for our listeners? I mean, the contact forms, look at your contact form, maybe shorten that up if it's a bit long because we learned something great today.
Shorten that up and commit, as difficult as it is, commit to taking a percentage of your revenue, 10 to 30%, and reinvesting that in growing your business, and getting more leads, because lead sources dry up sometimes. You may use Google ads for years, or SEO is a great example. I see these people, they invest all this money in SEO and getting their site ranked, and then Google changes the algorithm and they get spanked, and suddenly they're back on page 10 and they're not getting any leads. So it's important to, you don't want to have all your eggs in one basket. So you diversify and test new campaigns and test new systems like yours, to protect yourself, so that you're able to thrive, whether it's a good economy or a bad economy, or there's new competition, or you change, you're expanding, or you're going into a new market, whatever it is. The more you're able to test and prove that works, the better position you're going to be in.
Yeah, like with our system, we can see like, the ebb and flow, good months, bad months, things like that. And that's so critical so that you can look at the past to make plans for the future. And the pet sitting industry, do have some pet sitting clients. And one of the things that they've noticed is March break just happened and all the kids were home from school. They were taking the dog out for walks. So the pet sitters weren't coming out to walk the dogs. They weren't hired. They weren't needed. The whole summer, the kids are home from school. So the pet sitters have a slower summer. That's where you've got to run some ads. You've got to do something because you know that time is coming.
Right. Right. Cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So the dogtrainertoolbox.com. And then the dog trainer, I'm on this Facebook group all the time, dog trainer
That's your
marketing
marketing group.
on Facebook.
And then also my YouTube channel, Cats on Marketing, KATZ, Cats on Marketing. We've got over, I think, I'm going to say 230 or 240 videos on the art and science of how to start, manage, and grow a dog training business. And I take everything that I learned through the process of talking with top dog trainers or running ad campaigns. I do a video about that and put it up on the YouTube channel, and then also post it into the Facebook group.
Awesome. Awesome. And then from my end, it's just simply petbizexperts.com. And you can set up a strategy session. It's free to talk to me and we can look at your current sales process and see what we can automate for you to give you back maybe 10 plus hours a week and increase things sales wise 30%.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.